Hey guys, it's Kendra. I'm just popping in to do my very first voice recording over a YouTube video. I hope that you like it, but if you don't or my voice is annoying, go ahead and mute me. I won't know if you did, but even if I did know, I would not be offended. It's here for you guys to enjoy, so do whatever you want to do. Also, fair warning, I ramble a lot, and I've told myself I won't do that in this video, but I think that's pretty much impossible, so you should expect that I'm going to ramble, because I do. I've also started putting timestamps in my videos in the description block, so if you're bored at how long I spend roofing or whatever it is, you can just go ahead and go down there and click on the description for whatever it is that you want to see. So if you're looking for interior decorating or landscaping or whatever, you can just find it really quickly instead of sitting through the whole thing or, scanning through to find it. Anyway, this build, I called it Fern. So you guys know I'm kind of a struggle city with my house names. I think sometimes it goes great and sometimes it's like, what in the hell were you thinking? This one's neither, I guess. It's just, I named it Fern because it's green, which you'll see pretty soon. Really, really creative. You're welcome. So going into this build, I actually had more of a plan than I think I usually do, but I knew that I wanted this house to be one story, and I knew I wanted it to be 2 bedrooms, and I knew I wanted it to be a 100 tile small home for tiny living. So I did that because there was someone on Facebook that asked for that. I realized I had, a 2 bedroom and I had a 1 story and I had some tiny homes, but none of those that were all those things. And I just think it's nice, even though, this build is base game, I think it's nice to be able to have the option to play it as tiny living, because those skill games are serious, man. Like once you play with those skill games for having a tiny home, it is so hard to go back. You go back and you're like, wait, what is this? I don't want this. Can we not do this? So yeah, I don't know. That's why I built this home. I think I actually might end up playing in this home. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's a little bit different than a lot of my builds. And I realize you're all probably just thinking like, no, Kendra, like rolling your eyes. It looks the same as all of your other stuff, but I think it looks different, okay? I feel like it's a little bit more, I don't think you can call any of my builds edgy, but I think it's got a little bit more character to it than just the typical suburban vibe that I usually go for. I don't know, whatever. Also, side note, I was so excited about this green trim that I found there on top of the chimney. I think it is so cute. I've never seen it before, never noticed it before. I was just clicking through and it's the same color as the siding, and how lucky is that, guys? It's one of my favorite things about this build. It's weird the things that you decide are your favorites about builds, like random little trim that only shows for like 1/4 of an inch and it's my favorite part. Like, okay, whatever. But that's how it works sometimes, I guess. I get asked a lot like what I'm doing with those columns or how I make them. So it's just a combination of debug items. I use debug stuff to look like other stuff a lot, obviously. So for those front columns, the reason that I use debug for them is because I don't like the way that the columns that come with the game look. I think that they're little, they're all so skinny, and I think a lot of times they look out of proportion with the house. If you drive around and look at real houses, the ones that, I like, I think that usually they have columns that are bigger and they're just kind of more substantial, I guess. So all the ones that come with the game, if it's like an expensive column or even if it's all the expansion packs, they're all just kind of wimpy and sad and little. So I like to make my own because I think they look a little bit more beefy, I guess. Yikes, I'm sorry. I will never use that word again, I promise. But I don't know, I just think they look a little bigger and better, yeah. And it's also kind of the same reason, I suppose, that I make the vertical trim on the corners of my houses so often from debug items. You could, there's the siding that comes with the game that has those vertical trim pieces, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's not true. I don't like the way that it won't show as a trim piece unless it's far enough away from another corner. I just find that really annoying because my houses tend to have a lot of nooks and crannies, and that means that siding won't put trim on a lot of my houses, so I just find that really annoying. So I make my own. And I do use a lot of T.O.O.L, but You don't have to have T.O.O.L in order to do that. It's just because I find it easier. I don't want to fight with it as much. But if you don't have T.O.O.L, you don't use mods, you're a console player, whatever, you can still do this. You just take those fence pieces from debug and size it up. I think it's 3 times. When you do that, you want your house on a foundation, the kind that has like a ledge around it. And you'll put the fence piece on the corner. It'll rest on top of the foundation. And then you're going to take another fence piece, size it up 3 times, and place it in the same spot, but you'll want to raise it up a couple clicks. So if you do that, it'll cover the whole height of the wall. And you'll still get the same look, but you won't have to use a mod to do it. So just a little tip in case that's something that you want to do. You could also use the columns from, I think it's Get Together. They're kind of square looking, but I don't use them very often because columns are expensive, man. Like, wow. I don't know why they're so expensive in the game, but they are. I built so many starters, I just don't want to spend the money on columns. I have other things to spend my money on, okay? So that's why I use debug so often. It was about at this point I realized I didn't have a great plan for the landscaping. I think a lot of the times as I'm sort of going through the roofing, I kind of get a vague idea in my head for the landscaping, and I had no idea at this point. I decided that because this house is kind of simple and small that I needed to rein in my landscaping. A lot of times I go a little bit overboard with the landscaping, like I'm kind of extra the landscaping. So I tried really hard to just sort of, you know, leave it alone and let it be itself. I think I did okay. Maybe it's still a little bit too much, but I think it turned out pretty cute. I love, by the way, these, I don't know what you call them, tree bush things, evergreen bush things. I use them in almost all my builds. I feel like they're just about the right height to add a little bit of variety to your landscaping so it doesn't look flat, but they're not so tall that they cover up your build, if that makes any sense. I love using them in my builds. But funny story, I hate them in real life. In my house, like my actual house that I live in, when I moved in, we had these trees all along the left side of the house, like bordering the driveway and then all the way back, like all the way to the fence. And I hated them. So we have like, you know, cats in the neighborhood that are indoor, outdoor cats or whatever. And for whatever reason, they decided that that was a pee spot, like a litter box area. And so they were always peeing in our trees and they always smelled horrible. I have no idea why they did that, but they did. So they always smelled horrible. And then besides that, they're a spider haven. And I'm horrified of spiders. I mean, terrified. They are the worst. So if I avoided parking my car on that side of the driveway because I was scared of opening my car door and having to get out like next to the spider tree. So yeah, I hate them in real life. My husband, before we got married, he actually took an entire weekend. I was away for a girls trip and he drug all of those trees out, cut them all down, and that was one of the days that I was like, oh man, you know, I think I need to lock this man down. He's a good one. He got rid of the stupid spider trees. You probably don't care about that, but I did warn you that I ramble, so here we are. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the backyard. I think originally I had planned for this little area to be a sandbox. If you guys have been looking, I've been using those sandboxes a lot. But in the end, I decided that, you know, this was a small, cute little house, and I didn't feel like the kind of family that would live here would be the family that would take up half their backyard with the sandbox. Maybe they would. I don't know. I did feel like they were the kind of people who would want to grow eons of cabbage for some reason. So they got a little cabbage patch. You could replace it with gardening boxes if you wanted, but I just thought it was a cute little area. I did have to replace the fence around it. I thought the iron one that I used first was a better style to go with the house, but it had weird glitches all around it when I zoomed in, so I replaced it with this white one, which I've been using for railing actually around porches lately, so it worked out just fine. I also had to cut out a bunch there because for doing this wall around the entire back deck, because I changed my mind a bunch of times and then I still ended up doing the first thing. I don't know if you guys do that. I do that all the time, where I'm like, oh, I hate it, I want to do something different, and then I spend like 20 minutes trying to come up with something different, and in the end, I just end up doing what I was doing in the beginning. So I decided not to make you guys watch me being indecisive only to end up in the same place. I guess you're welcome. I don't know. If If you want to see stuff like that, I guess I could probably include it, but I wouldn't want to watch it, so I wouldn't make you guys watch it. I also love doing like these little garden areas like there is back there. I feel like it's really realistic. Like a lot of people have them in real life, and I just think it's nice. Like we have one. I mean, I guess we have a garden shed. We just don't use it because I'm terrified of it. I don't want to go in it. There's spiders. I think it's scary. So there's probably a lawnmower in there. I don't mow the lawn. Sorry. But yeah, so we just have like part of our deck is just relegated to gardening supplies. There's like a rake and all the shovels and the potting soil and, you know, those like plastic things that plants come in when you buy them, whatever, that they hold them. We don't know how to get rid of those. How the hell, or what are you supposed to do with them? Do you recycle them? I don't know. We just have a bunch of them sitting on our deck. Anyway, we have gardening supplies on our deck is the moral of this horribly random story. I'm so very sorry. Yeah, so when I went to decorate this house, I realized that it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. When I first did the floor plan, I was thinking like, yeah, I can kind of see how this is going to go. It's going to be fine. When I went to actually place the living room, I really struggled with it actually. And that's why I ended up moving the bathroom around to give room for that couch. I do really wish that the living room in this build had ended up a little bit bigger. It's definitely the kind of house where, you know, if you had your friends over, you couldn't all fit in the living room, and that kind of is unfortunate, but I think it's got a really homey little kitchen dining area, so I think it's the kind of house that would just be, that's where you hang out, you know. And I don't know, I guess that's how a lot of my friends' houses are anyway. I usually end up sitting in the kitchen because there's food, and who doesn't love food? I do. So I think this is that kind of house, and I decided to be okay with it. I also feel like I fit so much into this build. Usually space game starter homes in particular, they just don't get very many decorations. Part of that's just because the stuff that comes with base game, there's not very much of it. There's definitely not very much of it that's affordable. Like if you have expansions, there's tons of stuff that is cheaper than like this bed frame or whatever, or those dining chairs. But in the base game, the cheap stuff is really basic and there's just not very much of it. Even silly things like cabinets are just stupid expensive. And if you want like a cute, you know, dining chair like we have there, there's a big price difference in, this is like a crappy little folding chair and it's like more expensive than the little kitty chair. You know, it's just kind of silly the way that things cost in base game. So because this house is so small, you know, there's not very many walls and there's no stairs because it's one story, I ended up being able to fit a lot of decorations in here, and it was fun. I didn't have to go and try to figure out how to make free debug items look like decorations like I usually do. I just got to decorate with the game, and I think it's been a while since I've done that, so I had a really fun time doing that in this build. I think it turned out really cozy. Like this is a house that I would live in. I think it seems cute and cozy, and a lot of times I like smaller spaces just because what do you do with big spaces? Like, I don't know. There's just a lot of open space. It bothers me less in real life than I think it does in Sims, but I still don't know what to do with a big space. I just feel like there shouldn't be that much room in places. Like, I don't know what you do with it. It's so weird. Anyway, I think this house is cozy. I would totally live in it. Especially it's got a cool view out the back. I mean, that seems cool to me. So anyway, that is this build. Fern, I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you for watching it. And please let me know down below if you found my voice annoying or not. And also what you thought about the build. So anyway, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Happy simming.